Hey everybody, Kelly here. So this is a reintroduction to the video. I had several clips saved and I went to edit them clip by clip and save them again, and there were a couple of them that the sound was perfectly fine at first, and then when I added it into the final video the sound was just horrible. I can't hear anything, the sync is not correct, etc. So I thought I'm gonna have to redo it. So here I am redoing the intro, and hopefully you can hear me well enough. Yeah, I'm gonna try to continue to work on finding the right microphone for me, and in the meantime, hopefully I'm setting the camera close enough that you can hear me. Alright, so first project that I worked on today, or for this week, today actually, is the FatQuartershop 2023 Cupid box quilt called Heartstrings. So this particular quilt, I did not have the gray backing, and I didn't want to purchase the gray backing, so I actually used a light blue grunge that I had in a scrap bag from So Yeah. So I not only used that, but the size of this quilt is a 32.5 by 44.5. To me, that's slightly large for a wall quilt and slightly small for, well, it really is a strictly lap size. I prefer a throw size actually, so I actually wanted it to be a little bit larger than that. So I used a dark blue grunge as well for the border. So I think that turned out pretty cute. I did know that I was not necessarily going to have enough, and I did not have enough, so stay tuned to see how I remedied that. Alright, next project that I worked on was the Made with Love wall hanging from FatQuartershop. And FatQuartershop is actually called for J. Wecker Frisch fabrics, but I used some different ones that I had in my stash, and I think I have them listed here, and I'm not sure exactly what you're going to be able to see. Probably can't read my handwriting. So the backing was folio quilt backs by Color Principle for Henry Glass and Company. The letters and binding was Abigail by Dover Hill for Benetex. The hearts, I used Romance by Sue Zipkiss of Clothworks. And then for the outer border, I used Cottage Farm by Judy Jarvie. I'm not sure exactly. Anyhow, and so you'll see my finish on that, and I think it was pretty cute. Of course, it's got horses in one of the fabrics, so I always think that's cute. Alright, well, anyhow, so the rest of the video may not be very cohesive. I apologize for that, but it was still some cute little pieces. And along with the Made with Love quilts, I actually finished the cross stitch as well. So you may want to see that little finish on that. You know, wasn't anything spectacular, but it was cute. So, all right, well, even though this is the introduction, I'm going to thank you for watching right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it. And I may come back at the end to go over what I would like to work on for next week. All right, thank you. Have a good day. So this is when I think I have enough to actually cut off a little bit extra and save the selvage. So hopefully I've measured right. I may even have more than this, but I would prefer not to cut it too short, so yes, I do. And then we'll save this salvage end, because I will maybe come up with a project for it someday. And or Soya might come up with a project for it, and I'll just use their project. But I've got a lot of grunge, so I bet I could come up with some pretty good salvages. Although I prefer the ones that have little sayings on them. I think that would definitely make a cute project someday. Gather all the ones that have little sayings on the edge and make a salvage pillow or something. This is almost annoying. I'm literally 3 inches short on the top and the bottom, but I think I have a easy solution that will still look hopefully pretty nice. I have a scrap bag of pink grunge, and it's almost the perfect size to just cut it in half and add to that strip on the top and the strip on the bottom and finish my quilt top. And I have 7 strips left, actually 8 strips left over from the junior jelly roll, but I actually was planning on using those for the binding. Plus they weren't going to be enough width unless I put 2 of them together, and that just seemed kind of odd too. I think once I start kind of redesigning things, it almost always ends up a little bit odd, but I think it's going to work. I just can't decide whether I want to use the pink or the red. But I think I'm going to go with the pink because it's almost, like I said, almost the perfect size to cut it in half. Alright, well, hopefully that's what I'm going to go with. I might need to think about this some more. Okay, so here's my finished quilt top. And I've just been kind of inspecting it and seeing things where I've maybe cut off points. Just trying to get done quick. Sometimes I mess up and get a little too quick, cut off some points, etc. Let me back up and show the full thing again. Well, I don't think I can get the full thing in the screen right now, but I'm going to have a cornerstone and the top on the right and on the bottom on the left. And I just was looking over some details and I thought, I'm going to show this little detail here. So, getting going a little too quick. And I've got just a little bit of loose threads here. So it is actually sewn in on the top, it just is loose here on the side. So I could seam rip all of this top seam back to here and then sew this in tighter and then sew this all back together. But I've checked out the back and I think it is mostly secure. So other option would be to just take out those couple of threads and just snip them out. But a third option might be to do something along this line. And just take my Pigma pen and kind of color in those pink threads. Now the threads still exist. It's still slightly separated there in the corner, but it's together. It's going to be together enough when it's quilted. It's going to be fine. This is not going to be a show quilt. It's not necessarily one that I expect to be sticking around for 200 years. It's just going to be a cute little lap quilt. And so that was a very easy little fix right there. So I don't know how often anybody watching actually does those types of things to kind of fix up. But I try not to do it very often. We want to make it a good, solidly constructed quilt. But once in a while, just mark it a little bit, and nobody will ever notice that. But yeah, so now I'm kind of curious how you would quilt this. I'm going to consider this a finish for right now. I'm not actually going to quilt it. If I had stopped at just the inside portion, I probably would have just quilted it with really thin straight lines and just made it a cute little wall hanging. But since I went ahead and put the border on and made it a bigger lap size quilt, there's a lot of opportunity for different ways to quilt this. You could literally, well, so like one of the things I'm thinking is I could actually quilt horizontally on the inside and then quilt vertically on the outside on the border. So that would be an option. Or if I had done all 4 cornerstones, I could have done the outside border with vertical lines on the sides and horizontal lines on the top to kind of continue the direction that the fabric travels. You know, the sides are horizontal, the sides are vertical, and the top and bottom are horizontal. I might have said that wrong just now. I don't know. Anyhow. But you get the idea. And you could just always do a pantograph on it too. But I'm just going to set this aside. I'm going to consider this a finish for now. Set it aside, and as I need to give a gift, it might be one that I pull out and finish on my little Janome. It might be one that I give to somebody else to quilt. It might be one that I actually save for someday when I hope to have a long arm. Alright, well, I think now we're on to the next project. Alright, so we're moving right along to the Made with Love quilt and cross stitch along from FatQuartershop. So I've already done my cross stitch, but now I have the pattern for the quilt. So if you haven't done yours yet, you can actually go to FatQuartershop and download the pattern. I will try to put a link to it below. And if you have done it already, you're probably already got it finished up and put on the wall, but I hopefully will get it done this weekend. So let's see. Alright, so cutting instructions should be on the back. So we'll go ahead and show that. Since it's a free pattern, it won't necessarily matter if you go ahead and copy it off of here even. So, alright, I'm going to move some things out of the way, and I'm going to get started on showing you which fabrics I'm going to use for what and getting them cut. Alright, I'm going to use this fabric for my hearts, this one for the letters and the binding, this one's for the backing, or not backing, background, and this one for the borders. So I think that should be pretty cute. I think a couple long strips of that on the top and sides, I think that'll look really nice. I like that fabric. I like all the fabrics, but I like that one in particular. And then, like I said, for the background, it's not just plain white, but I don't think it'll be too distracting. I hope. And then just red for the letters and the binding. I think the binding, maybe I might do a scrappy binding, but I'm thinking that one. And then this for the hearts. All right. According to our cutting instructions here, the hearts are the only thing that are actually a fat quarter, which is what I actually have set aside for that. And then everything else is at least 2/3, 3/8, 5/8. So basically what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut a yard of everything so that I can starch it. And then for the backing, it's 1 1/4 yards. They're calling for the same fabric as they used for the hearts, but I'm probably going to use, I think I'll probably use the red one. And that way I may not necessarily use this as binding, but I may take the backing and actually do what's called a fronting. So you just turn the back over to the front and stitch it down. So we'll see when I get there, but if that's the case, then I will probably cut this more like, what would it need to be? 2 yards? Yeah, so 1 1/4 and 5/8. I'll cut at least, yeah, I'll probably cut 1.5 yards and then cut a different yard for the blocks. Something like that. Anyhow. Okay, I'm not certain yet. The other fabrics may be as well, but this fabric right here on the table, the backing, is actually a 108. So I'm not going to cut yardage off of it. I'm just going to find my longest strip and cut a hunk. Well, then I look at my chart here, and the longest strip is 24.5 inches. But I look at all the other called for cuts, and if I cut a 24.5 inch piece off of this, I'm going to have a lot of scrap out of the piece that I cut. So then I went to the second longest one, and it's 13.5 inch strips. So I think I'm still going to end up with quite a bit of scrap, but I think I'm going to go ahead and cut that. It will cut it down to a reasonable size for me to continue working with, and hopefully not have too many scraps left over from this piece. Now for this piece with the horses, because it's going to be my side borders and top borders, I actually need to get 28.5 inches for the side borders, but I'm going to go ahead and cut a hunk out of this about 30 inches so that I make sure that I have enough length after all. And so like right now I'd rather oversize it just in case I make a mistake and my sewing is, my 1/4 inch seam isn't quite right and it doesn't equal 28.5 inches. Maybe it equals 28 3/4 or 29 inches. I'd just rather cut the hunk to be about 30 inches and then have a little bit to cut down. And I need to cut it this way because I'm actually going to make this a 30-inch strip going vertically. So I'm going to have a lot of scrap left. I'm going to cut 2.5 inch by 30-inch strips out of this, and then I'm going to cut I think it was 17.5, I don't know, I forget the exact, I think 17.5 inch strips. So by the time I cut 2.5 inches out of this, I will have plenty left to be able to cut my top and bottom pieces widthwise. But for right now, to make this a little easier on myself, I'm just going to cut out a 30-inch hunk. So basically, I still have a 4-yard cut here with about 6 inches left. So 4 yards and 6 inches is about what it'll be, because it was a 5-yard cut. And I just took 30 inches out of it. Started cutting and realized that I forgot to start filming, but that's okay, because in a way I decided it was good to spare you this just because it was a lot of little pieces to cut, and because I needed to cut these strips here for the top and bottom, and they had to be fussy cut because of the directional fabric. So actually it was good that I spared you that. But anyhow, I have here my blocks laid out now so that I can just sit down at the sewing machine and sew them together. And yeah, so I should say I have my letter blocks laid out. I don't quite have my hearts all laid out, but I got myself prepped, ready to sew, and I should be able to get this knocked out pretty quick tonight. Well, one thing's for certain, I still have no stitch regulation, and I can't draw on the dotted line, or I can't sew on the correct line. Alright, let's see if this will work. Not having any stitch regulation, these are pretty small stitches, and hopefully this paper comes out. And some of them are not small, so hopefully my stitches don't rip out. And I guess if they do, it really doesn't matter because I didn't do a great job anyway. And of course I'm going to have all kinds of little pieces all over. I was really wondering how it was going to be where I double layered it. But I think it's okay. It's actually kind of satisfying to pull this out. Oh, except when it gets tiny little pieces. Alright, well, I think I will finish this up and I'll bring you back later. just a little bit more bling. So I'm thinking I'm going to put this on the outside here. See if I've got enough. I should have bought some more of this after Christmas. I got a few different Valentine's projects, and so one little box of this might not be enough. But there's always the dollar store. Dollar Tree. Found a bunch of different blanks the other day, and so I've got some ideas for Easter too. Alright, just waiting for my glue gun. Then I will get that glued down. Alright, hopefully I can... The hot glue, sometimes, even though it's supposed to be clear, you can see it really well. So hopefully I can do okay with this and get the beads on without seeing too much. Okay, future me is back. So, I think what I've established so far is that this is the best sound setup that I have for the moment. I'm continuing to work on it. So please do leave me some comments and let me know if you can't hear me, if you can't hear me very well, if you can hear me perfectly fine. So I've had some comments in the past that people couldn't hear me at all. I've had some of those were on videos where I was outside and it was windy, so I thought maybe that was part of it. And some of them, you know, of outside walking away from the camera, sometimes in my sewing room far away from the camera. But I think I've established is that it's one of the types of video that I can use on my camera. It just does not pick up the sound as well. But I am still working on trying to find a microphone that works best with my camera. So I thought I found one, and then all of a sudden it was only working through the left side. Like the audio was very much distorted because it was only through the left. Sorry, I'm going with my right hand, but it's through the left. And so they were a set of microphones that initially each one was working just fine by themselves, and then now something has happened that I don't know if they've paired together and I can't get them unpaired. Anyhow, it's not important. I will continue to try to figure it out, and in the meantime I will just try to talk a lot louder, right? And so I just hate doing that though, because I do most of these videos later in the night and other people in the house are trying to sleep. So, and you may see or have heard in a couple of my clips earlier, it was kind of funny because when we talk about hearing, I can hear the microwave downstairs in a couple of the clips from earlier. So I don't know, I don't get it. Anyhow, yeah, so that's that, and I just kind of want to go over what I would like to work on for next week. So for next week, I actually have the 2024 Cupid box pattern called Better Together. So the cute little birds. I was hoping to do that for this video, but I didn't quite get there. So next video, this is going to be my first project. And then my second project is actually another old one that was from 2022 by FatQuartershop. Their charity quilt along for 2022, heartfelt. I have the kit, and the patterns are still available online through FatQuartershop. They are free, but they do ask for donation to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I would encourage that. So if you haven't participated in this already and assembled it already, or maybe if you have, there is a fabric line called Heartfelt that I think just came out. I can't remember the designer, but it was really pretty. And if I weren't on a fabric diet, I would have thought about it, but I'm trying to make up some of my older items and stay away from buying too much this year. So to that end, I'm going to do the 2022 Heartfelt Quilt Along, and I hope to start with block 1 this weekend. I think it calls for making 5 of them, so I'm probably not going to go on to block 2 this weekend. I think I'm going to break this up into a long-term sew-along, so like maybe 6 or 7 month sew-along. And so this is what I plan on doing for next week's video. Things may change, but that's the plan. So, and when I say things may change, I have a whole lot of outdoor chores to do. And next week, we're going into inventory at my job, so it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. Anyhow, yeah, and outdoor chores, among them are a pile of rock in my driveway. It actually is my driveway. So a couple of the recent snow, a couple of the snows from several weeks back actually ended with a huge pile of rock for me to get raked out, and several piles of rock in our yard. So I'm going to try to work on that a little bit this weekend, and some other outdoor chores, fixing up some things. And Dad's doing well with his hip replacement. In fact, he's already trying to do a couple little chores around the house. So literally just had hip replacement surgery last week, and so he's already kind of up and around and trying to do a couple little things. So that's good. And yeah, so, among them are, I just realized among them are some things that I forgot to buy today. Uh-oh. Oh well, it'll keep. It's, there's a couple things that happened during the storm that need to get fixed. So, anyhow. Alright, well, thanks for watching, and have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week.